In this video, we're talking about parts of a circle and how to find its circumference and area. So what I want you to do first is pause the video, copy down all of these definitions into your notes, and put the drawings in. When you finish that, go ahead and play the video, and you're going to need a highlighter. Okay? So now that you have all these written down, let's go through them really quickly. So we're going to be finding the circumference of a circle. The circumference is the equivalent of perimeter. Okay, so the circumference is the distance around a circle. That when you draw that circle is the actual line that you draw. So I want you to take your highlighter and actually highlight the outside of that circle. Because when we're talking about the circumference, that's what we're talking about. Okay, that actual line. For the diameter, most of you know that this is the whole way across a circle. Okay? We're going to be getting into chords and other things with circles, where a chord could be a line across here. What makes a diameter special is that we're going from one point of the circle to another, and it has to go through the center of the circle. Okay? So for this lesson though, as long as you know that the diameter is all the way across, that's enough, but later on we will get a little more specific. Okay? So I want you to highlight the diameter of that circle. For the radius, that's only half your diameter. The radius is starting at the center of the circle and going to a point on the circle. So it could go here, it could go straight up, it could go over here, it could go down, it could go at an angle. So any of these would be a radius. So go ahead and highlight your radius. Now, pi is something special with circles. That pi is actually the ratio of the circumference of a circle to its diameter. When we talk about it, we're really saying pi, pi, not PIE, pi. And then we use this little squiggly line. Okay, this is actually a Greek letter. I'll draw it a little bigger. That's how I write it. Okay, just two straight lines down and a squiggle line on the top. So that's pi. If you don't have a pi button on your calculator, which if you have a scientific calculator, you probably do, but a lot of times we use 3.14 to represent pi. Pi is actually an irrational number. It does not repeat, and that decimal never terminates. It never stops. So this is just an approximation for pi. Okay? So for the circumference and area, here are your formulas. We have 2 for circumference. We have 2 times pi times the radius, or pi times diameter. This is where we get what pi is. Because if you divide both sides by d, you get c divided by d equals pi, or the circumference divided by the diameter equals pi. Okay, just some little trivia for you. But then remember the relationship between a diameter and a radius. It takes 2 of the radii in order to get 1 diameter. So that's why this is the 2 pi r. Okay? For the area, it has to be pi times the radius squared. One way that you can keep these straight is that since circumference is measuring the distance around the outside, that is just one dimension. Okay? We can measure that with a string. So we're going to measure it in inches or feet or miles, whatever. Area is how much does it take to cover that circle. So we're looking at square inches, square feet, square miles, square centimeters. So radius is squared with area because the unit is squared. Okay, one easy way to remember. So let's look at some examples. I've given you a circle where this is 8 feet long. Okay, so I'm going to begin first. Do we have the radius or the diameter? Well, since this is going all the way across, this is my diameter. Okay, so for my area, I'm going to start with my area formula. Area equals, pi times the radius squared. Just start by writing down your formula. Now let's fill in our numbers. So I'm going to keep pi because I'm going to use the pi button on my calculator. Well, if my diameter is 8, then what is my radius? Well, the radius would be half of this, so I'm going to use 4 for my radius. So area would be pi times 4 squared. So typing that in my calculator, I have a pi button right there, if you could see that. So I just hit pi times 4 squared, which remember 4 squared is not 4 times 2, it's 4 times 4. And you get about 50.265, so I'm going to round that to 27. Okay, now for my inches, or for my units, let's go back. This was in feet, and since it's area, it's going to be square feet. Now, for my circumference, there are 2 different ways to do this. I could use pi times diameter, okay, and use the 8, or I could use the 2 pi r and use my 4. Since I was given the 8, I was given my diameter, I'm going to use that formula. Okay, so I'm going to use circumference equals pi times diameter. So it's going to be pi times 8. Getting my calculator out. It'll be pi times 8, which rounding it to 2 decimal places, rounding it to the hundredths, would be 0.13. Again, looking back at my units, it was feet. Circumference is a distance, so it's just going to be feet. So my area was about 50 square feet. The circumference is about 25 feet. Okay? Now, if you had worked this out using 2 pi r, you'd have 2 times pi times 4, and you'd get the same answer. Now, I want you to pause the video and work this problem out. When you finish working it out, press play and we'll check it. Okay, so here we are given the radius. So it kind of skips that first step of having, when we're doing area, having to figure out the radius. So again, I'm going to start by writing out my formula. For area is 2 pi r squared. So it's going to be pi times 8 squared. Typing that in my calculator. Pi times 8 squared. Oops. Keep dropping it. Is 201 6/100. Going to my inches, or my units. Don't know why I keep saying inches. It's feet, and with area, it is squared. So the area is 201 6/100 square feet. Since our radius was bigger, our area should be bigger than the previous one, and it is, because we got 50 last time. Okay? So there's my area. Now, I need to find my circumference. Again, if you want to use double this and use the diameter, pi times diameter, that's fine. I'm not going to because I was given the radius, so I'm using 2 pi r. So putting in my numbers, it will be 2 times pi times 8, which will be, didn't hit the 8, 50, I keep doing that, 50.2, and round that next number to a 7, which is 0.265, so I bumped that up. And with circumference, it is just feet. If you had used the diameter, you would have 16, the 2 times the 8. Okay? So my area was 201 square feet, circumference is 50 feet.